First, we import the useRouter hook from the Next.js package and the useEffect hook from React. useRouter allows us to access the router object, which we can use to listen and react to routing events, and useEffect is used to hook into component lifecycle events. Here we define a function called handleRouteChange, which will be called whenever a route change starts. This function takes a URL and an options object which tells us if the routing is shallow. Shallow routing allows you to change the URL without running data fetching methods again, useful for pagination, for example. This function currently just logs a message to the console. In our functional component, named myComponent, we instantiate the router by calling the useRouter hook, giving us access to the Next.js router instance for this component. We then use the useEffect hook to subscribe to the route change start event on our router instance. We pass in the handleRouteChange function as the event handler. This sets us up to be able to execute any custom transition logic every time a route change begins. In the return statement of the useEffect, we provide a cleanup function. This function removes our handleRouteChange event listener when our component unmounts, preventing potential memory leaks and redundant operations. Within our component, we define a function called goToAboutPage. This function calls router push with the path about to programmatically navigate to the about page of our application. This is equivalent to clicking a link to about but gives us more control over the navigation process. Finally, the return statement of our functional component renders a simple UI, a div containing a button. When this button is clicked, it will invoke our goToAboutPage function and trigger the client-side route change. This is just an example, and in practical terms, the page transition could be visual, perhaps involving animation or progress indicators which would be triggered in conjunction to these routing events. And lastly, we export myComponent so that it can be used elsewhere in our application.